Okay, so I've had a couple of requests to make some bread, so I'm going to try to throw some bread together, specifically a spent grain bread, and I get some spent grains from breweries, specifically Big Boiler in Lowell. These guys are terrific. Their beer is fantastic, uh, and I get some spent grains from them, and so I actually have a couple different things. This is a spent grain from a porter brew, and these are grains that came from a blonde ale. So different grains, different flavors, and it's really kind of fun to make breads and realize different flavors from these really cool brews and cool grains. So I'm just going to do one with the porter, and I made one the other day, and man, it just came out terrific. So I'm gonna use this um, porter grain, spent grains. So first thing, it really is easy, and the nice thing about this is yeast, flour, spent grains, some sugar, some water, don't forget salt. That's it. So just a handful of ingredients. Take a look at the bread you buy in a store. The ingredients list, you know, it's about like that long. Couple ingredients, that's all this is. So the first thing I want to do to get this thing started is I've got a cup and a half of water, and in the cup and a half of water I'm going to dump in, now it's something I haven't done before, but I've got 1/3 of a cup of sugar, and I'm going to dump it in the water. A lot of times when I make bread, I just use some molasses, and I really like using molasses. I saw this in a recipe once, and it works okay, and it really adds a nice contrast to some of the bitterness and so forth that you'll get in various grains. So I'm going to use that. So 1/2 cup or 1.5 cups of water, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, tablespoon of yeast. I tend to measure this stuff out. I'm really more of a measure by weight person, so I like, you know, essentially 10 grams of yeast and 10 grams of sugar, and or I'm sorry, salt. And so at this point, I just want to get that started, because this thing really needs to start bubbling up and getting all that yeast growing and eating all the sugar, things like that. So I want to get that started. So that's it. 1.5 cups of water, 1/3 of a cup of sugar, and then a nice big tablespoon of yeast. And I'll just get that thing going. And hopefully the music isn't going to drown this whole thing out. So that's it. Just whip it all together, let it start to do its thing, and then I'm just going to set it off to the side and let it go. So for the grains, and I'm going to grab a cup here. This, to me, this is really a make bread by feel. I've tried to come up with a way that I may be able to measure some of this stuff, but I'm at this point not a real. I don't really measure some of these things. So I'm going to take with the spent grains. I think what I'm going to do is grab, and this is really a very generous cup, maybe even that's probably more like a cup and a half. So that's a cup and a half, and I'm going to do another one. So I'll grab another cup and a half of this stuff. And when I have that, so essentially I have 3 cups of the grains. And when I add that in, the next thing I'm going to be doing then, and actually before I forget, I think I will get the 10 grams of salt, which is, you know, about that much. A nice healthy, okay, so I'm going to put that in. And at this point, what I really have to do is wait for the yeast to kind of bubble up and do its thing. And when that's done, then I'm going to add the yeast directly into the spent grain. So I'm going to take just a break here for a second and let the yeast do its thing, and then I'll come right back. So it's just frothing away. It looks wonderful. Let it run longer. doesn't matter. At this point, simple. Got the spent grains. This is the porter. Spent grains of the porter, and it's got a little bit of salt in there that we put in earlier. So I'm just going to take this, dump it in. Make sure you get every last bit of that lovely yeast in there. So yeast is in. So it looks pretty soupy. I'm going to take this, get it plugged into my stand mixer, and I will get my nice little dough hook, right? So I'll get the dough hook in, crank that baby up. Now here is the sort of by-feel part of it, and I put the flour in here. I have about 5½ cups. I put it in here so at some point, if it looks right, I'll see if I have any flour left over, so you get maybe an idea of how much flour goes into it. Like I say, when I make this, I don't measure. I just dump in until it looks right. So I'm going to get this thing started, and with that started, and I don't know if I can do this effectively or not. I guess I'll find out. This is in no way intended to be a high-end video production, so we'll see what happens. So I'm just going to grab some flour and just dump it in. And initially, and you know what? I'm going to see if I can't reposition this, so I'm going to pause it just for a second. Okay, I think that's the best I'm going to do for this high-end, high-quality production. At least I can see down to the bowl at this point. So I'm just going to dump in more flour. And I know it's going to take a fair amount, so at least initially, I can really comfortably just kind of drop it in there. And it wouldn't hurt to have like a little spatula or something like that, so I can kind of push it away around the sides. And what is interesting about this, I think, for me, is sometimes when it really looks like it starts to come together, and then all of the moisture that is in the grains, and just to be clear, the grains are moist, so I haven't dried them out or anything like that. These are the spent grains from a brew, and I don't do anything to dry them out. I just chuck them in the fridge, and so there's water in that as well. There's a high moisture content. So it's starting to absorb that flour. So I'm going to grab some more and just plop it in. And again, you can kind of pull it away from the sides a little bit. When it's done, it's still going to be a relatively sticky dough. So it will come together. I'll get a ball formed on this, but it's kind of a sticky dough, and that's terrific. I mean, it turns out in the end to be this wonderful, moist but chewy bread. It has a great crust on it. So it's taking that flour in fairly well, so I'll dump some more in. And really, as you can see already, I'm probably almost 5 cups into this already. And it's starting to come together fairly nicely, but I can tell already that it will certainly take more flour without any problem. So I'm going to go ahead and grab some more and just chuck it right in there. I'm not at all surprised that it will certainly take the 5½ cups I had. It may take a little more. I'm hoping not. I'm really thinking 5½ 5 to 5½ should be pretty close. pull that away from the sides just to help it along. And I'm going to go ahead actually and add the last of that flour right in there. And that, I don't know, that might actually work pretty well. We'll see. If not, I'm going to have to grab more flour from my 25-pound Costco bag, which is almost empty already. As that's getting close, one thing that I do then to let it rest and to let it rise is, I have a nice big bowl that I plop it in, and I line the bowl with a little oil. And you can certainly use olive oil. It gives a nice flavor, which I love olive oil. Put a little olive oil in. But one thing that I have, oh geez, it's reversed. You can't see that at all, can you? It is pumpkin seed oil. So this pumpkin seed oil is just phenomenal. So I just put a little bit in the bottom so that when the bread's ready, you can kind of roll it around in that oil, and keeps it from sticking, and with the pumpkin seed oil it also gives it a really, really cool texture, flavor. And I can see that with this, it's close, but it still isn't really pulling together this nice ball yet that I would like. But it's really, really close. I got my little half cup measure, and I put about a quarter cup in. And with that in, so it's just over 5.5 cups, somewhere between 5.5 and 6. And you can see that this dough is starting to come together. It's trying to get that a ball form. So that's looking pretty good. I'll sprinkle just a little bit more in there, and that should be plenty. I'm going to turn this up a little. And like I said, it's a moist, dense dough. Last that half cup, and I think that's going to be perfect. Yeah, so that's a total of 6 cups. So 6 cups of flour, 3 cups of the spent grain, salt, yeast mixture, and even though it isn't forming this nice, perfect ball at this point, I think that's going to be just fine. Yeah, that looks good. It's starting to pull the flour away from the sides, and so it's cleaning the bowl pretty well around the mixer. And really, so that's it. I'm just going to take this, because it's been kneading this for a while. I think it should be okay. You can certainly, if you walk away and let it just knead this for a while, no problem. So at this point, yeah, the ball looks good. So I'm going to turn that off, drop this out, and that's it. So it's obviously really, I mean, the grains are everywhere in this thing. It looks perfect. And I'm just going to kind of fold that around a little bit. And certainly sometimes just take it on the counter a little bit and just get a nice ball formed. And, you know, that's it. And yeah, it's sticky, but it has, you can see my hands don't really stick to it. It's just a moist dough. very dense. So I'm going to take that, I'm going to put it in my bowl, and then just sort of spin it around and get it in that fantastic pumpkin seed oil. And it looks, I mean, it's sort of a greenish color almost, and it's all coated. You're going to get the whole thing coated in that nice oil. If you used olive oil, do the same thing. Oh, geez, this really smells good. So I'm going to put that in. I'm going to pat it down. Throw a towel over it. And wait.